Hello, my friends. This is Angelo here. Welcome to another podcast. And for those of you who are new to this channel, please subscribe. Also, know that this channel is not going to last forever. They will ultimately censor me because the transsexual and the LGBT activists, they don't like what I share with you. So they are going to try to shut me down. You can almost be guaranteed that they're going to try to do that. And they'll probably succeed, because they have succeeded with everybody else. So I've been obviously preparing for this, but I don't know if you have been preparing for this, to see that some of the people that you want to learn from, they're going to be taken down from the major platforms. So please come back to my personal website at paulangelo.com and share your email address on the main page. It doesn't matter where you put it. Just share it with me so that you will stay updated and we can stay in touch forever. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about why emotional connections are really the key to healthy and powerful life. And that in the gay world, we are disempowered because the emotional aspect of our relationships is not communicated, is not taught, is not shown to be of importance. And we pay a huge price, which is basically emotional deprivation. So everybody knows what sexual deprivation feels like, but do you feel what happens when you're emotionally deprived? And did you know that emotional deprivation actually costs you a lot more pain? Because emotional activation and emotional experiences are necessary for your brain development. So there's an extraordinary amount of research about neuroplasticity, and how our brains basically, they change and they adjust every day. And so when it comes to therapy, when it comes to coaching and improving ourselves, the good news from this understanding is that when you are in a healthy state of self-expression, so when you are authentically sharing and receiving emotions, that's the most powerful developmental activity you can ever give yourself in your life. Because that's when your brain is adjusting, changing, and augmenting itself to fit whatever it is that you need the brain to do for you. See, in the gay world, the problem happens on a psychological level, and this is a big deal when you see closeted men that have to shut their emotions for 20 or 30 or 40 years to be with their women. You know, we're talking about major handicap in terms of their brain development, because now emotion cannot be part of that. And emotion is really what brings everything together. We think that emotion is just what we feel on the externality. Emotion is what produces internal completions to mechanisms that are beyond our understanding. And we want to respect them, not trivialize them. So neuroplasticity is about understanding of the brain's ability to change, to fix itself, to heal itself, and that major things like traumas, major things like hurt, pain, abandonment, crises, accidents, certain even disabilities with learning and with cognitive performance, a lot of that can be healed, can be brought back into equilibrium, and can be taken into the ascension level, the next level basically. But it all has to do with the emotional hygiene in your life, in your ability to recognize when you are emotionally activated. Just like when you have an arousal in the morning, waking up with a raging heart on, which is what I wake up every day with, you need to know that you have that going on with your emotions. You're waking up with an emotional heart on. Well, obviously, you don't wake up with it, but you're going through your day with these emotional heart-ons everywhere. And you need to ask yourself, what do I do about all of that? What do you do about all those emotional heart-ons that you have? And I'm not talking about the arousal towards sex. I'm talking about heightened state of emotional sensations. What do you do about it? How do you process it? How do you organize it? And so this is, something that you will need to learn if you want powerful life, because your emotions are very powerful, and becoming aware of how your emotions work is really crucial. Your emotional connections with other men, whether this is for friendships or for love, these relationships are not only good for you because of the opportunities for sexual contact and opportunities to love and to feel good and cozy. That's not the only purpose for these relationships. The emotional activity in these relationships is basically keeping you alive. And this emotional activity, when it's authentic, as opposed to dating closeted men or dating bisexual men or dating men that are hiding and lying and betraying their wives and telling you all kinds of stories. We're talking about a healthy and authentic emotional connections. Those connections are basically ways that your brain is adjusting and growing all the time and adjusting itself to the environment of your world, of your reality. And what you often notice when you are in healthy and authentic relationships where you feel love or you feel that emotional warmth, what you will notice is that you're capable of fast change. And that's where all of this now comes together. You're able to change yourself without any friction, without any delays, without all the procrastination, without all the crazy stuff that happens when you're not emotionally activated, when you're emotionally deprived. So emotional deprivation is basically like driving on a 5-lane highway and you can only drive on the slowest lanes because you don't have access to a state of being that's part of an emotional awakening and part of high performance. High performance not in sexuality, I mean high performance in life. So your emotional relationships with other men is what makes your life possible on the fast lane of life because of the fact that you're emotionally activated. When you're dating bisexuals, when you're dating closeted men, you can be emotionally authentic. So your brain's capacity for self-adjustment and making you capable of dealing with your reality is much, much more difficult, if not regressive. So neuroplasticity requires your emotional authentic activation. And this is, my friends, where the rubber meets the road in terms of your potential, in terms of your goals and your achievements and your purpose and your vision. All of that is possible for most people. But see, the reality for most people is that they are developmentally incapacitated or they are regressing developmentally. It's not that we can't reach our potential. We all can reach our potential, but we have to be finished human beings. We have to have developmental processes of our composition of our psychic, our body, our emotions, all of us has to be completed. So sexual development is part of that. Your identity as a man is part of that. Your identity as a gay man is part of that. Then emotional discernment, emotional intelligence is part of that. And then you enter into a social world with the moral discernment, the moral intelligence. And these things are layered one on top of each other. Emotional availability, emotional relationships are the essence, is the engine for all these developmental things to be circling around and coming together at the bottom in the vortex. So by negating emotional activation, by negating the facts that emotions are a huge part of your psychic and how you are, by negating it, by trivializing it, and by entering into relationships that are narcissistic, where your emotions are negated, devalued, when you feel things, but the other person tells you that you are nagging, that you are bitchy, that you are too picky. So a lot of people do that when you are emotionally activated. They want to like suppress you and they want to complain about your emotional activity. Those are places that kill us and shut us down. And so that's why in the gay world, abuse and trauma is basically everything that you see today. Everybody's abusing each other. Everybody's traumatizing each other. And, you know, I kind of laugh a little bit because, I mean, can't you see it? And for sure, can't you feel it? Because if you can't see it, you should at least feel it. And you should feel it through depression and anxieties. Bringing this discussion now back into the concepts of higher purpose and higher functioning, like through a vision, that requires emotional activation. And not just emotional activation last year, but emotional activation that has been going on for 5-10 years. Because there is this motivational component to a vision or to your purpose. It's not necessarily that it's an idea that takes you forward. It's your internalized motivation. It's your internalized passion that takes you forward. And to say that emotion is not part of that is crazy. Of course, emotion is a huge part of how you develop your passions, how you develop your drives, your vision for the future. Your discovery process for your purpose has a huge emotional component to it. And most people think that we can have only sexual relationships without high emotion and continue, and we assume that that is not going to affect our higher purpose ideas for our lives and the development of them. Of course it's going to affect it. If your relationships are purely sexual and they're not emotional, then you will be regressing in your self-understanding. And because you're regressing in your self-understanding, your ability to discover that higher ground for you is not possible. And that's what I see with gay men all across the board. They ask the question, what is my purpose? And when I ask them to talk about it more and more and more, I really see no passion. I don't see any emotional motivation that is coming from the belly, you can say, the center of their psychic. It's like the seed for passion, the seed for vision, the seed for higher level functioning is nowhere to be found, has been, I don't want to say removed, but definitely has been suppressed to such a degree that many men don't know how to get back into it. And that's the price that we pay when we are in shaming environments, in environments that devalue us to reduce us to genitals and anal sex, where emotional activity is suppressed and completely cut out of the interaction. So those environments will never yield you a human being that is developed enough to be able to feel authentic drives towards a vision, purpose, and higher functioning. So starting a business and changing the world is not going to be possible. Making a huge difference in your community is not going to be possible because emotional activation that has been going on for 5 to 10 years is the only way that you can enter into those higher functioning states of mind. So that's why in the gay world, you don't really see any authentic, pure leadership. There isn't any, because most people are underdeveloped, because most of them have not understood that for their brains, for their intelligence to be powerful, emotional activation has to be part of that. You can't just say to yourself, I'm going to be this geeky, powerful intellectual. You're kidding yourself, because that will never come to fruition. You might get a PhD and other people might claim that you are intelligent on paper, but when it comes to the superb expression of your intelligence, you'll never be able to get there because a huge element of that is your connection to your intuitive sensations, your connection to your deeper passions that also allow you to enter into a more abstract but yet real structure of life that's governed by intuitive sensations, by abstract connections to the divine and to the unknown and the unseen, and through your brain's ability to go higher, further, and deeper. And to do all of that, you have to master your emotional awakening. You can't get there if you just like a little boy feel things here and there ambiguously in ways that are imperceptible and in ways that are confusing. You will never enter into high performance. You will never enter into high spiritual sense of being when you're not emotionally completed. And so I'm bringing this back now to the importance of emotional relationships with men, even though you don't have sex with them, even though you're not touching each other, even though you're not on top of each other. It's okay for these relationships to be purely emotional and nothing else, because you're benefiting, your brain is benefiting. There are good things about you that are being awakened that contribute to a very complex and powerful state of mind a few years down the road. I'm actually beginning to notice this in my own psychic because I'm extremely emotional, or I should say, I'm very emotionally open. I want to feel things towards human beings. I want to fall in love either immediately or across the span of 10 years. I'm okay with any kind of loving exchanges. I want as much love, as much emotion from another man as possible, because I recognize that this is like fuel for your intelligence. And I'm noticing in my own personal life how I am becoming more intelligent by actually allowing this to happen and not feeling shame about it, which is what you feel in the gay world. Most men feel shameful about emotional activation. Most gay men, when you hooking up with them, when the moment you want to talk about something emotional, they just want to walk away and they look at you funny. So this intellectual development process is hindered, is suppressed. And so we don't have a lot of leaders that really know what's going on and can really give you answers that are the real answers to your questions, because they are emotionally deprived for most of their lives. And so their ideas are just purely ideas on a piece of paper that are so theoretical and so limited and low IQ. That's, my friends, why we are where we are in the gay world. Most people are very primitive, emotionally underdeveloped, sexually underdeveloped with their masculinity, underdeveloped with their gay identity. Why? Because emotion that was authentic never was part of that process. So it's like they were driving in their lives on the slow lane most of their lives, and all the ideas, all the concepts, all the, you can say, some of the emotions that were part of that, they came from the slowest lane on the highway. And whenever they observe another gay man zooming past them on the fast lane, they don't even recognize them. They are so foreign, they're so different from them, they don't know what to do about it. They're confused because they've lived in this fragmented world without emotion most of their lives. And so that's why the narcissistic abuse in the gay culture is a big deal. It kills us all. That's why the narcissistic abuse from our lovers kills us all. And we really have to understand what narcissism is. Narcissism is not just selfishness. Narcissism is the absence of development of the brain in human beings. When you call someone a narcissist, what that really means, well, I should say, when I call someone a narcissist, in my definition, in the more concrete definition, is I'm basically saying that this human being has never developed the part of the brain that produces empathy, that produces emotional activation that's authentic. And so these human beings will devalue everybody who has that capability, and they will use those people to somehow compensate for their own brain underdevelopment. And these things are permanent. So narcissism and the disorders that have to do today with lack of completion on a psychological level, some of these things are permanent. You can't fix it. You can't change it. You have to walk away from it. And that's the part that most of us end up suffering from, because we don't have this understanding. So we hope. You hope that he's going to love you back because you want him so much, because of his genitalia, because of his beautiful body, because of the sex that he gives you. And the price that you pay is your underdevelopment. And basically you take your power away from yourself by becoming a victim to a suppressive environment that is so toxic that it actually strips you from your potential. And that's why I make a huge deal now about all these processes, all these things for you. You need to see how you're killing yourself by entering into emotionally deprived situations, by being guided by this mechanical pursuit of love and relationships without realizing that there's so much more to all these relationships. There's so much more to what you need to do about your relationships. There is a deeper purpose to why these relationships are the way that they are, emotionally charged and then later sexually charged and the rest of it. All these mechanisms that happen inside of relationships are transferable into your life. In fact, that's how it's always been. We have always grown the fastest and in the richest way through relationships. The dynamics between human beings is what gives us growth, is what gives us intelligence, is what gives us learning. And all the PhD people, all the pseudo-intellectuals out there, they're intellectuals in some way, but they're not intellectual in the most important way, which is the emotional way, which is the spiritual way, which is the relationship kind of way. because that is really the essence of all of our lives. If you can say, this is the bottom line, this is the bottom line. There's nothing more consequential in your life than your emotional relationships to other people. And in the gay world, of course, the emotional relationships with other men. And whatever is standing in the way of doing it, whatever is the challenge on the way of making this happen, I hope that you throw everything into it and fix it, because your intelligence depends on it, your sense of self depends on it, your ideals, your vision, your purpose, all of that depends on your emotional activation. Without emotional activation, without emotional relationships, you are trapped in a perpetual decline in your life. And that's why relationships are so important. It's not about sex. It's not even about the loving love. It's about what it does to you when you're in it, how it changes you, how it enhances you. And then once you're ready developmentally, which is once you completed your sexual development, where sexuality is familiar, then once you complete yourself as a man, where you create boundaries for your masculine identity, and then when you put the healthy gay identity on top of that, that doesn't distort the masculine identity, we are talking about becoming unstoppable when you are emotionally activated. So you already have all the power. You can reach your potential, but you need to understand that these are processes that you need to close for yourself. Otherwise, you will be deprived of the ability to have that intuitive and that motivational pull towards your own self-understanding, towards your own horizon of transcendence. Your own horizon of transcendence is your vision, is your purpose, is your higher activation of your beingness, where you can lead, where you can make a difference in the world, where you can take a stand, where you can bring courage, and you can become the leader that the community needs. Because now you know what's going on, because you're fully completed and fully aware of the things that you need to see to be an effective person, to be an effective lover, to be an effective man in this chaotic world. So emotional deprivation takes you away from all of this. Emotional activation takes you there faster. And you need to take emotions seriously. Otherwise, you're killing yourself. And that's as simple as it is. You must take your emotional awakening to the highest level that you can. There's extraordinary power that comes from that for men. As I wanted to leave you with this deep insight, leave you with this invitation to emotional activation. Never trivialize emotions. It's a mistake. Only stupid, retarded, ignorant, low IQ people trivialize emotions. I hope that you're not one of them. Okay, my friends, thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm super excited to share with you more and more in the future, to get more videos and podcasts like these more directly. Come to my personal website at paulangelo.com. Also, to avoid censorship, that is the best way to reach me at paulangelo.com. Until we talk in the next audio, or video, a podcast, love for love, honor for honor, I will always fight for you when you fight for me. And that is our social contract. Okay, my friends, I'll talk to you soon.